A short introduction to Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra. Zarathustra is a prophetic figure proclaiming a new Nietzschean way of life in this book. And this book is a work of fiction. It's one of those few moments when the integration of philosophy and literature is pretty much absolutely seamless. It has few equals. Among them are The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius and The Improvement of Human Reason by Ibn Tufil. But it is a very rare thing to have such an integration as this. And it is a long and complex work of literature, and portions of it can be extremely confusing. Here's a short introduction to this fascinating book by Nietzsche. The first thing to note is Zarathustra, the name. Zarathustra, the historical character, also known as Zoroaster, was the founder of Zoroastrianism in ancient Persia. He's the guy who proclaimed a version of monotheism in ancient Persia. This is, like so much else in Nietzsche's little joke. Zarathustra, the literary character, proclaims the death of God and is to be contrasted with his historical namesake, who proclaimed monotheism. Now, more about these jokes. Thus Spake Zarathustra is a little bit like a Bible for a new Nietzschean way of life. There's religious language everywhere. There are quasi-religious overtones. There's a literary style borrowed from religious texts, and there's imagery borrowed from religious texts all over the place. But neither Nietzsche nor Zarathustra, his main character, proclaims any authority to teach this new way of life. So Thus Spake Zarathustra is in this respect not at all like a Bible for a Nietzschean way of life. It is in fact, in pretty much every respect, more like an anti-Bible for the Nietzschean way of life. Let's talk about the beginning of the book. Zarathustra is this weird old hermit guy, and he lives on a mountain. Atop the mountain is the cave he lives in. Now this is Nietzsche's little joke on Plato. In Plato's cave analogy, the cave represents the lower world, the physical world, the material world, the world we need to get beyond, the world we need to ascend past in knowledge and perhaps after death, in location we need to get past the physical world. We need to get out of the cave. We need to understand the higher immaterial reality. Well, this is an ascent metaphor in Plato's Republic, and the cave analogy therein. The ascent is out of the cave, and the ascent is also, using a different related ascent metaphor, the ascent is up the mountain of truth, up the mountain to the truth at the top of the mountain. Well, in Nietzsche's little joke, at the top of the mountain is the ultimate truth, and the truth is the cave. The truth is that all there is the physical world. That, I think, is how Nietzsche wants this little joke on Plato to be interpreted. The ultimate truth at the top of the mountain is the truth that there's nothing there. There's no higher immaterial reality at all. There's just this world. Now, Zarathustra has been living in this cave on top of this mountain, and he goes down the mountain in the beginning of the book, and he tries to teach the people of the town he loves. This town is called the Motley Cow, or the Pied Cow. I think what this town represents is European culture in Nietzsche's day. It's motley because, or pied, you could almost say spotted. It's made up of different colors. It's made up of different characteristics. It's a jumble of bits and pieces from previous culture. There's no unity to it, and it needs to be fixed, needs to be healed, needs to be renewed. European culture needs to be renewed. And Zarathustra has this understanding of something that the people in the town don't quite understand yet. Zarathustra understands that God is dead. And he tries to tell these people in this town that there is a new and a better way to live in the future. The way of the Superman, or the way of the Overman, or the way of, in Nietzsche's original German, the Übermensch. Now that God is dead, Zarathustra wants these people to remain true to the earth. Now, this is what the Overman, or the Übermensch, will do. He's true to the earth. Let's clarify this notion of the death of God. It's not, of course, a historical event. It's a cultural event. What Nietzsche means is that God has become irrelevant in European culture, and that European culture is still clinging to the idea of God, and it needs to move beyond that. The death of God is a moment of great promise, but it is also a moment of great risk. There is the promise of a better life in and of and for this world. Be true to the earth. But there's also the risk of cultural nihilism and despair. Nietzsche is an atheist. He doesn't think God has ever existed, but he thinks that the idea of God has now become irrelevant in modern European culture. And this, for a culture that still relies on God for understanding any meaning in life, there is a great risk of nihilism. There's this great risk of despair. There's this great risk that man will become what Nietzsche describes as the last man, the last pathetic version of humanity. And what we need is to get beyond the death of God and get beyond the need for God. That's how Nietzsche is thinking of it. So Zarathustra tries to teach the people of the Motley Cow about this new way of life and about the Overman, the Übermensch, and he discovers that they're not ready for his message, and so he seeks new disciples. Now, what Zarathustra wants is not that these disciples will follow him. He rather wants them to be true to themselves and to be true to the earth, and that is what the Overman is. In a single word, the Overman, the Übermensch, is a life affirmer. Now, Nietzsche, I think, does not consider himself to be the Overman. Rather, Nietzsche is a critic of the old ways. He is an announcer of the death of God and a herald of a new way of life in this world, but he is very critical. He's looking backwards a lot. He's looking backwards to the old way that needs to be criticized. Now, this criticism is necessary. It really needs to be done. But the important thing, ultimately, is to move beyond these old ways and stop criticizing them. Eventually, we have to move past this temporary pessimism into a state of optimism, into a state of life affirmation and a very optimistic variety thereof. Interestingly, even Zarathustra, Nietzsche's literary character, does not seem to be the Overman. He too is a herald of the coming way. In this respect, I think Nietzsche is intentionally likening Zarathustra to John the Baptist in the New Testament. Likening, but also drawing a disanalogy at the same time. What John says in the New Testament is something like this. John says, I am not the Messiah. I am not the one you were waiting for. The Messiah is coming after me, and he is greater than me. Look to him, follow him, be true to him. But what Zarathustra says is, I am not the Overman. I am not the one you are waiting for. The Overman is coming after me, and he is greater than me. Look to him, imitate him. And in imitating him, be like him, true to the earth, and true to yourselves.